Now, former presidential liaison to the National Assembly, Senator Ita Enang, has attributed the economic challenges currently facing the nation to the failure of the National Assembly to discharge its mandate creditably. Enang said it is the fault of the National Assembly for failing to do their oversight function, noting that if the National Assembly were able, they would ask questions. According to him, when a budget is passed, it is important to embark on oversight to see how much of that budget has been released and to what extent the projects in that budget have been executed. Enang added that while the National Assembly is doing well in oversighting ministries, departments, and agencies, it is depressing to note that they have never brought their reports to the floor of the Parliament for deliberations as required by law. To re-emphasize this, we're now being joined by Senator Enang himself in our Abuja studio. Senator Enang is a former special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on National Assembly matters, and he had variously served as chairman of both the House and Senate committees on rules and business. He joins us now. Senator Enang, is it safe to say you're presently not happy with the state of the nation? I think it's very clear. But let's just zoom into specifically the economy at this time. The Nigerian economy has been plagued by issues such as high inflation, currency devaluation, and a lack of diversification from oil independence. In your assessment, how has the National Assembly's oversight role contributed to addressing or exacerbating these specific challenges?
Thank you very much, and thank you for all the compliments. I am making reference to the failure of the National Assembly to do what they ought to do when they ought to do. I am not in any manner referring exclusively to the 10th Assembly. I'm referring to the Assembly, I think a little bit from the 7th Assembly where I was, but it got worse in the 8th Assembly, 9th Assembly, and it is continuing till today. How do I mean? When you have a project budgeted and money is released for that project, and you are going to see the extent to which that project has been implemented, you should go to interview the minister, look at the project executed, and how much was budgeted, you have it. How much is been released, the permanent secretary and the minister has it. What has the project been executed to the extent of the amount released, you have it. And when you come back, you lay the report on the floor, lay the report of your committee on the floor. That report will be considered, and if considered and passed, in the next budget season, they will know whether it were a road, what should be appropriated to that road, and what should be not be appropriated. Take again the question of when you approve loan for a state to take, or you approve loan for a facility. The National Assembly has oversight responsibility. First, not just after approving. Before you approve, you look at the project they want to execute with that loan. You examine the project, and you also see the cash flow, the possible returns, and ensure that it is the money that will come from that project that will be used in repaying that loan, and not oil money. We have problem today of the challenge of the naira against the dollar. Now, what are we doing with our dollars? We are using that to repay the loan that we're taking. And of course, ministers have always told us consistently that our revenue is almost at par with our expenditure, and sometimes almost exceeding the expenditure. What are we doing with the revenue? We are repaying debt. Why should we use the revenue we generate today to repay the debt that we took in yesteryears? We should ensure that it is through the oversight responsibility of the National Assembly on the debt management committees, loans, aid, and debt management committees, to ensure that, yes, we approved the loan to be taken. This is what it was used for. We've gone to see what that state used the money for. We've gone to see what the federal government used that money for. And it is that money it is the source from which that money was invested that is repaying the loan. Take a case study of Kaduna now. They have an issue. And the issue is, how did we spend the $300 million we took as loan? The National Assembly ought to have, before they approved for it to be taken. And the State House of Assembly ought to have, although they say they are perhaps saying they did not, it didn't undergo due process before them, the State House of Assembly ought to have ensured that it is the project for which that money is to be used that is going to repay the loan. And that State House of Assembly has a duty today to ensure that that money and the project for which it was used for is the money that is being realized to repay the loan, and not money from the Federation account. The money from the Federation account, as at today, should be used to service the current activities of the government. And please, let me just add this now, that in the next review that the National Assembly and the country is going to have on debt management, it should ensure that no governor takes loan beyond the period of his governance. If he has 4 years, you can assume he has 8 years. You shouldn't take loan that he will be repayable in more than 4-5 years, so that he knows that it is his tenure that will be used and what he realizes from that loan that will be used in repaying and not keeping debt for the future. And I think we may go on, if it is within you, that we consider the factors that are causing the Naira challenge. I won't call it with what the public calls it, because we have to honor our currency.
All right. Before we get into that,
thank you.
I just want to deep dive into what you feel is not being done by the National Assembly in terms of accountability for budgets. And, you've made reference in the past to the fact that, this mess is because of, money that was borrowed and there's no accountability. Now, my question to you is there a space for accountability? We all saw what happened to Senator Ningi when he tried to table an issue for investigation so as to foster an environment of accountability. It didn't pan out well for him. So my question is, what is it, as you're pointing fingers at the National Assembly, what is the root cause within the Senate, as the Red Chamber where you served, or within the House of Reps? Why are the members unable to table these motions? What's stopping them?
Well, it is no more a question of motion or bills for now. It is making sure that the laws as they are implemented to the letter. Take, for instance, you talk of the appropriation. We've talked of the bills. Now, take, for instance, medium-term expenditure framework. With the medium-term expenditure framework, as prescribed by the Fiscal Responsibility Act, is intended to give you an idea of what the country is likely to receive in the short term of 3 years, what is likely to spend and what it is likely to spend on in the next 3 years, and in the immediate past budget. And you're supposed to consider and pass that medium-term expenditure framework, transmit it to the executive, and they use that to know that this is your benchmark oil price, this is your exchange rate, and this is how much we're going to have from the non-oil sector. Now, the National Assembly ought to do this and send, so that it will be what guides the executive in presenting its own budget. But they do not, for a while, answer for pass this and send it in time. Although sometimes the executive doesn't send it in time, and so they don't consider it in time. So it is to make sure that this is done. I understand that part of their challenge is trying to meet the January to December budget line. But that is not cast in stone, Because right now they have run into economic a challenge of budget implementation. On the implementation of the capital budget, I had occasion to meet one of the ministers and I chatted with him. Now, are we using the revenue from the 2024 budget, from the 2023 budget? Okay. Are we using the revenue of 2024 to execute the budget of 2023, which you have extended? Or you are using the money that were like carryover money from the 2023 budget capital to implement the 2024 budget, which you have extended implementation to April or May? And if you do, the part of what was to fund the 2024 budget was to be the extra money, excess money that is carried over from the 2023. What happens to that source of funding for the 2024 budget? It is eclipsed. So the National Assembly, and one other thing that the National Assembly has always had as a problem is that when something comes, when a measure, a bill, or a request for approval comes from the president, either to approve a loan or something, and they will consider that it is from the executive, we must pass. No. What Mr. President or the governor sends to the House of Assembly or the president to the National Assembly, what he sends is a proposal. And it is for the National Assembly to consider, go into the details. If it were a loan from the state, if it were a request for you to approve an external loan from the state, first, you have to do due diligence by considering what is the state owing already? What is the revenue inflow from the state? From the project it took loan to pay. What is it, and to what extent has that challenged the present request of the president? From the president at the request of the governor of that state for them to approve. How will they be able to survive? What are the other elements of loan that is already challenging that state? What are the sources of income of that state? Is that state owing internal loans, like the money they normally take from the central bank by whatever name called, or loan for agricultural programs? Are they owing? And how will they pay in the next 5-10 years? They only tell them, look, this loan is sometimes free, is almost free, is 1%. With 1% at the 1% interest rate, at the time that the exchange rate was 100 naira to $1, and you'll say it's free. Is it the same exchange rate? Is it the same 1% at the time you'll be paying it when it is 1,200 naira to $1? It is over 300%, 400%. So nobody should deceive you that it is a very low interest rate, because your exchange rate is always challenged. So the National Assembly should consider every measure that Mr. President forwards to them, or the State House of Assembly that the governor forwards to them, that it is considering that I have received this request. I have forwarded it to you in the manner I received. Consider and pass as if I've thought fit. Mr. President never requests you to approve, because you are a legislature of 360 members on the basis of population.
All right,
you are
Senator.
a legislature of 109 senators on the basis of equality of states and the Federal Capital Territory. It is known that all of you will, with your very fine brains, consider each of these. Ask the senators from that state. Ask the members of the House of Assembly from that state. Ask the records from that state. Take input from the Debt Management Office. Take input from the Fiscal Responsibility Commission. Take input from the Ministry of Finance. Take input from the Governor's Forum as to the debt. And then before you decide to approve, because what has challenged the economy of Nigeria today is not how much loan or the facilities that has been taken by the federal government. It is more the facilities that has been taken by the state government.
All right, Senator.
And each governor,
now,
when he comes, yes.
Some argue that the National Assembly's oversight role has been hampered by political affiliations and partisan interests. How can the institution transcend these divisions to ensure a non-partisan approach when it comes to economic oversight? I
will not agree. I don't agree to that, because Now, the National Assembly is led by the APC at both states and at both House of Representatives and the Senate. But members of the PDP are more APC than the APC themselves. They do not play the role of the opposition party, which is supposed to question the activities or actions of the or that is brought in or that measures on the floor. They do not. I mean, the role that people like Femi Gbajabiamila, the senator from Borno South, the chief whip of the Senate now, the role they played when they were minority leaders in the House, the role that great minority leaders played as for AD, Alliance for Democracy, NNPP, and the role that Kau played as of the minority party, now a senator representing Kano in the House of in the Senate, but when we were in the House of Representatives, the role that Dr. Yerima of Kaduna played from NNPP, I think he's now a professor in one of the universities, in the House of Representatives. The minority parties no more play that role. So they are more PDP, they are more APC, and more supportive. Not that they shouldn't support, but they don't ask questions. And when a measure comes, it is not given the depth of consideration, and questions that ought to be asked are not asked. They are not asked in plenary, they are not asked in committees properly well. So it is not a question of partisanship. It is a question that the legislature needs to be a lot more detailed in their consideration of measures, whether coming from the executive or coming from members, but relating to the economy. Take, for instance, Mr. President has issued a policy that the members of workers or public officers should no more travel unless it is essential, unless it receives approval at a high level of government. But all the parastatals under the supervisory, under the oversight jurisdiction of the National Assembly and committees are still doing as if nothing ever has happened. They are not interested in finding out from the parastatals how they are using our dollars in the travel. The first 2 weeks, it seemed like work, but no more works. Now, there is also the policy that nobody should buy goods or pay for services in the dollar. The National Assembly Oversight Committees, several of them, should find out from the institutions how many of this, to what extent are these complied with. Almost 98% of the goods, like watches, suits. In fact, a tailor approached another person the other day that he wants to make a suit for him, a safari suit, and he's pricing it in dollars. That is to make a suit for a Nigerian in Nigeria. To make just safari suit, he's pricing the tailoring work in dollars. So, and this shouldn't be. The National Assembly should descend into this. Find out what is happening in the real estate market in Lagos and Abuja. They are still pricing and selling in dollars, and they buy the dollar at whatever rate so as to pay for these services, which ought not to be. Go to the 4-star, 5-star hotels. They are still charging in dollars. Go to buy even a watch. Go to buy a leather. Go to buy a pen in most of these shops in Abuja and Lagos and Port Harcourt. They are still pricing in dollars. They tell you it's 30, though this one is 20. 20 what? It's $20,000. And Nigerians will buy in dollars, sometimes pay cash. And nobody's telling them you can't even do this. The EFCC waved the flag the other day, and after that it was like as if that flag was giving vitamin to the situation to grow more. So even the AFCC was just grandstanding. I wouldn't apologize to them. If they think that I should apologize to them, let them go. Let them go. Even now, it is about 5 or 7 minutes to 2 p.m. Let them just get their intelligence out in the next 5 minutes and find out all the hotels, all the shops which they know they are selling goods in dollars and people are still paying right now.
All right.
What is it? We shouldn't.
Senator
the president is not supposed
Ita
to do everything.
Enang.
When the president issues instructions, the institution should just make sure it works. The legislature should just make sure it works.
Senator Ita Enang, thank you. You've detailed this experience very robustly, and thank you for your insight, especially as somebody who was within the National Assembly. So we're paying attention, and we hope the necessary authorities are also paying attention. Thank you so much for your time today.